Bonus round! Okay, what's on the docket for this week's bonus round where we're talking about meat? Well, I want to talk about kind of one of the most controversial and impassioned topics in any grill master's playbook, and that is the use of marinades and brining and meat tenderizers. What's the facts here? All right, well, let's start out with marinades. Now, marinades have been used for centuries. Originally, they were just basically acidic vinegar solutions that you'd throw meat in for a while to try to kind of enhance the flavor. It's really grown since then, right? Now we've got marinades that have juice and wine and complex concoctions that everyone keeps dear secret lest their magic marinade come to market. Well, essentially, what's going on with a marinade? Well, basically, when you take a piece of meat, right, it's just these fibers, and they are cells, right? And so they're going to naturally absorb a little bit of anything you put them in, okay? And so putting them in a marinade can really up that flavor potential, definitely, especially, but here's the thing, it's only ever going to penetrate by just a few millimeters, maybe a centimeter, half an inch at most, okay? So if anyone's ever telling you they've got a marinade that can penetrate all the way through a, big old 4-inch steak, they are lying to you, okay? The other thing that they might say is that, oh, the marinade, it's tenderizing the meat. I put some acid in here so it tenderizes it. It breaks down the fibers. Yes and no. Yes, acid can absolutely break down some of that connective tissue and kind of disrupt those muscle fibers in a way that might make it seem more tender. However, the amount of acid you would need and the length of time you would need to put a steak in there to have any sort of tenderizing effects is just preposterous. So chances are, while your marinade is going to make it taste better, it's probably not going to tenderize it so much. Which brings us to meat, the magic of meat tenderizers. Now you've probably seen these in Fry's or Safeway or wherever you do your grocery shopping. These steak meat tenderizers. It's this little shaker full of salt and sugar and what looks like who knows, some crystal solid from the gods. Is it? Yes, it is great at tenderizing food. Okay, if you put this in water and then you put your steak in there, it will tenderize the heck out of the muscles on the very outside. Again, because this is banking on the meat's ability to take in water, here's your problem. These cells are not alive anymore. So most of the things they're going to do, it's just going to be a very passive thing. So if you set this thing in a tenderizer for a day, at most, you're going to get maybe a 1/4 of an inch penetration on this, which in my opinion is even worse, because then you have this super tender, like wildly kind of almost mealy quality to the outside, and it's tough as nails inside. Now you can alleviate some of this if you say you use a injector. But again, it's not going to penetrate very far from where you injected it. So unless you plan on just stabbing this thing to death, I don't know how I feel about tenderizers. I'm not really for them. Now that brings us to brining. Okay, well, what does brining do? The idea is you're going to take your meat, whatever it is, and put it in a salt solution. So that is to say, water with a bunch of salt and sugar in there. Mainly salt. That is the qualifying key, but you can use sugar too. Now this works a lot like a marinade in that your meat is going to absorb what's going on out there. Here's the difference though. When that meat absorbs salt, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to open up the muscle fibers a little bit to allow more water to come in. Now what's wonderful about that and different than marinades, because while marinades, that stuff comes in, it doesn't add to what was in there. It just kind of replaces it almost. With a brine, you're increasing the space that stuff can take up, and it's really going to fill this with moisture and a lot of any other flavors you put in there. Now, when you go to cook a steak, a lot of that moisture goes away. If you've ever cooked a steak, it gets a lot smaller by the time you're done. Now, a lot of that can be, it's not that a brine steak won't lose water, it's just that it has more water to begin with. So essentially, when you brine a steak or a chicken or whatever you brine, your end product, when you're done cooking it, is going to have a lot more moisture than it would have otherwise. And that is the best thing that I can think of. Juiciness is king. Now, well, what about tenderness, right? We've been talking about tenderness. Honestly, one of the only ways I've ever found it to be effective is to pulverize that bad boy. There's some actually really great implements out there if you've got, say, a tough flank steak, where it's got a bunch of needles in it, and you can just jam that thing in there, and those needles will puncture it and essentially disrupt those connective tissues enough to truly tenderize the meat. They're just called tenderizers, right? Those things work pretty well. But chemical tenderizers, I doubt it. So, anyway, on to your homework. Now, your homework for this week is kind of out of the book. Now, what you'll find is, as we keep going, quite a few of the next few chapters, and the ones we've done, we haven't done the whole thing because there's a lot there, and this class would be a couple of years if we went through the entire book. So we're kind of picking out the good parts. All right. If you're interested in this stuff, I would strongly encourage you to read the rest of it, or at least look at the table of contents for that chapter and kind of see, hey, is there anything here I would like to learn about? For this chapter, right after where we stopped in the reading, I think page 156, there are descriptions of different ways to cook the meat. So here is your homework for this week. You are going to get a piece of meat. I don't care what it is. If it's a chicken breast or a beautiful steak or duck or bacon, whatever. And you're going to pick one of the techniques described in here for cooking that meat. Now, I want you to read that section where it describes how to cook that, any tips, tricks, very carefully. Okay? And you're going to cook it based on the information given in here. Okay? What are you going to submit to us? I would love to see some pictures of your finished delicacies and pictures as you go. And please, a little brief description, no more than a paragraph, of how you use the information from this book and from this lecture to help you cook a better piece of meat. With that, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.